My story begins in a quiet village where life was simple and people believed that family was everything. I was born into a house where love and respect seemed to exist, but underneath the surface there was always a shadow of greed. My parents worked hard all their life to build a small fortune, a few acres of fertile land, a modest house, and some savings. Their dream was that this property would keep their children safe after they were gone. My sister and I grew up together. We played in the fields. We shared meals, and we celebrated festivals, but as we grew older I noticed something strange. My sister's eyes always sparkled when she looked at our land. She would often say, "One day, all this will be ours," and I thought she was only joking, but her tone carried a weight that unsettled me. When my parents passed away, suddenly everything changed. The house felt empty, the laughter was gone, and the only thing left was their property. According to their wishes, the land and the house were supposed to be divided equally between my sister and me. I wanted to honor their memory, so I agreed without hesitation. I thought fairness would keep peace in the family, but my sister was not satisfied. She wanted more. She started to insist that because she was older, she deserved the bigger share. She argued that she had sacrificed more for the family and therefore she should be rewarded. I reminded her that our parents always wanted equality, but she refused to listen. At first, I tried to ignore her demands. I thought time would heal her greed, but instead her obsession grew stronger. She began visiting lawyers. Secretly, she spoke to relatives, twisting stories about me, painting me as someone ungrateful and selfish. Soon whispers began spreading through the village. People who once respected me now looked at me with suspicion. They believed her lies, and I felt isolated. One evening, she came to my house with a group of relatives. She spoke loudly, accusing me of trying to steal everything from her. She claimed that my parents had left a hidden will in which most of the property was given to her. I was shocked because I knew there was no such will. I had seen my parents' papers with my own eyes, but she presented a piece of paper with shaky signatures, pretending it was real. I told her it was forged, but she kept screaming. The relatives stood confused, unsure whom to believe. My heart broke because I never wanted this conflict. I only wanted peace, but my sister had declared war. That night I could not sleep. I sat by the window, remembering my parents' words. They always told us to stay united, to never let property break our bond. Yet here I was betrayed by my own blood. I cried silently, asking myself what went wrong. Why was she so blinded by greed? I wanted to forgive her, but the wound she gave me was too deep. I decided I would fight not just for myself, but for the truth. The next day I visited the town lawyer and showed him all the official documents. He examined them carefully and confirmed that the so-called will was fake. He explained that the signatures were mismatched and the dates were inconsistent. This gave me some relief, but the battle was only beginning. My sister was determined. She started filing complaints, she spread rumors, and even tried to bribe officials. Her actions were like poison, slowly destroying every relationship around me. Friends distanced themselves, relatives avoided me because they did not want to get involved. I was left standing alone. Despite the loneliness, I refused to give up. I worked day and night to collect every piece of evidence. I searched old files, I spoke to neighbors who had witnessed my parents' words, and I gathered every proof that could expose her lies. Slowly, the truth began to take shape, but my sister was clever. She acted sweet in public, crying fake tears and pretending to be the victim. People easily believed her because no one could imagine that a sister would betray her own blood. She played her role perfectly while I carried the burden of reality. Months passed, and the conflict escalated. She even tried to occupy the house forcibly. She brought men to break the locks and move her belongings inside. I stood at the door, blocking her path. My hands shook, my voice trembled, but I did not step aside. I told her firmly that this house was not hers alone and that justice would be served. She screamed, calling me heartless, but I stood like a rock inside my chest. My heart was burning, yet I knew I could not surrender. If I gave in today, my parents' dream of fairness would be buried forever. The court case began. The village buzzed with gossip. People attended the hearings like it was entertainment. My sister came dressed elegantly with fake documents, while I came with truth in my hands. The judge listened patiently to both sides. Every hearing felt like a war. Sometimes I felt weak, sometimes I doubted myself, but whenever I thought of my parents' sacrifices, I regained strength. I could see their faces, reminding me to stay strong. During one hearing, the judge asked my sister simple questions about the will. She stumbled. Her answers contradicted each other. The judge raised an eyebrow, suspicion growing. Then my lawyer presented the original records, signed by local witnesses years ago. The truth was clear. My sister had lied. She tried to shout, but her voice cracked. The courtroom filled with murmurs. People began to realize that she had been deceiving everyone. My heart pounded, as if freedom was within reach, but I stayed calm. I wanted justice, not revenge. Outside the courtroom, she confronted me, her eyes filled with hatred. She said, "You may win in court, but I will never let you live in peace." Those words pierced my soul. She was no longer the sister I once knew. She had become a stranger, consumed by greed. I walked away silently, knowing that some battles are fought not with fists, but with patience. At home, Emily, my daughter, watched me with concern. She was young, but wise. She said, "Mom, do not let her bitterness break you. You still have me. We will face this together." Her words gave me courage. I realized that while my sister was trying to take property, I had something far more valuable: the love and support of my child. Days turned into weeks, and finally the court delivered its judgment. The forged will was declared invalid. The property was to be divided equally, as my parents had wished. I felt relief washing over me, yet there was no celebration, because what was lost could never be restored. The bond between sisters had been broken forever. But I knew this was only part of the journey, because sometimes greed does not end with one defeat. It keeps returning, finding new ways to strike, and deep down I sensed that my sister was already planning her next move. After the court judgment, I thought life would finally return to peace. I believed that my sister would accept the decision and move on, but I underestimated the depth of her greed. Instead of calming down, she grew even more bitter. Her pride was wounded, and she wanted revenge. She could not tolerate the idea that I had stood against her, and she started creating new problems every single day. At first, she tried to disturb me emotionally. She would call late at night, shouting insults. She would stand outside my house screaming at me so that neighbors would gather and watch. She told them that I had cheated her in court, that I had bribed officials and stolen her right. Even though everyone had seen the truth, she managed to twist the story again. Some neighbors began to doubt me, and the whispers returned. I realized that for her it was not just about land anymore, it was about destroying me completely. I tried to ignore her cruelty. I focused on my daughter Emily and on building a better life for us. But my sister did not stop. She began sending strange men to threaten me. They would knock on my door and leave notes with warnings telling me to give up the property if I wanted peace. My daughter grew scared. She asked me if we should leave the village. I looked into her eyes and told her, "No, we will not run. This is our home, and we will not let fear control us." One evening, as the sun was setting, I was walking back from the fields when I noticed smoke rising from the back of our house. My heart froze. I ran as fast as I could. The shed where we stored tools and grains was on fire. Flames spread quickly. The neighbors rushed to help us, and together we managed to control the fire, but much was lost. Deep inside, I knew this was no accident. I knew who was behind it, but I had no proof. My sister stood at a distance, watching with a smirk on her face, and in that moment I understood she would go to any length to break me. I went to the police and filed a complaint. They listened, but they did not take strong action. My sister had already spread stories that I was making false accusations to harass her. The officials did not want to get involved in family matters. They told me to handle it peacefully, but how can peace exist when one side only wants destruction? Weeks passed, and her attacks grew sharper. She started approaching distant relatives, convincing them to claim a share in the property too. Suddenly, cousins who never cared before began calling me, demanding their part. They said our parents had promised Them portions of land, which was a complete lie. It was my sister's plan to drown me in endless disputes. I felt trapped in a storm. Every time I solved one issue, another would rise, but I refused to surrender. During this chaos, my health began to suffer. I felt weak, I lost sleep, and my body grew thin, but I kept reminding myself that my daughter was watching me. She needed to see strength. She needed to believe that truth always wins. One night, Emily held my hand and said, "Mom, you are stronger than you think. Even if the whole world stands against us, we will not give up." Her words gave me energy like fresh fire in my heart. Then something unexpected happened. A kind neighbor, Mr. Adams, came forward. He had known my parents for years. He told me that he remembered a conversation with my father where he clearly stated that the property should be shared equally between us. He was ready to testify in court if needed. His support was like a ray of light in darkness. For the first time in months, I felt that maybe I was not alone. But my sister did not stop. She discovered that Mr. Adams was supporting me, and she began targeting him too. She spread rumors that he had an affair with my mother to discredit his words. People laughed at the absurd claim, but some still believed her. Lies have strange power when spoken repeatedly. Mr. Adams faced humiliation, but he stood firm. He told me not to worry because truth cannot be buried forever. Meanwhile, my sister filed another false case. She claimed that I had stolen family jewelry that belonged to her. She presented fake bills and fake witnesses. The case dragged me back to court. I was exhausted, but I gathered evidence. Once again, I showed the receipts of jewelry purchased by my parents long before she was exposed again, but she did not care. For her, it was not about winning legally, it was about keeping me trapped mentally. The constant battles affected Emily too. She stopped smiling like before. She became quiet and withdrawn. One night, she asked me, "Mom, why does Aunt hate us so much?" I had no answer. I hugged her tightly and said, "Sometimes greed blinds people so badly that they forget love and family." I promised her that no matter what, we will protect our peace and happiness. One afternoon, I decided to confront my sister directly. I went to her house and asked her why she was doing all this. She laughed and said, "Because I cannot stand to see you happy. If I cannot have everything, then you cannot have peace." Her words shook me. She had confessed openly that her mission was not justice, but destruction. At that moment, I realized that reasoning with her was useless. She was lost in her own darkness. So I changed my strategy. Instead of reacting to every attack, I began focusing on my own growth. I started a small business selling organic products from our land. I worked hard day and night. Emily helped me, and slowly we began to earn a stable income. Our house, which once felt heavy with sorrow, began to feel alive again. Customers respected me, they appreciated my honesty, and soon our business grew. My sister watched all this with burning jealousy. She had wasted her energy fighting me while I had built something meaningful. This difference between us became visible to everyone. The villagers who once doubted me started admiring me again. They said I had shown strength and patience. They compared me to my sister, who only spread hatred. The more she tried to ruin me, the more she exposed herself. People stopped supporting her because they were tired of her lies. She grew isolated. Her so-called allies left her one by one. She was furious. She could not accept that despite all her schemes, I was still standing strong. But deep inside, I knew the war was not over. Greed never ends easily. It waits for another chance, another weakness, another opening, and I feared that she was preparing something bigger, something more dangerous. I had to be ready because the story was not finished yet. Months passed, and the storm around us grew quieter, but I knew it was only the silence before another strike. My sister had disappeared from the village for a while. People said she had gone to stay with relatives in the city. I almost believed maybe she had finally given up, but then the final and most dangerous chapter began. One morning, I received a letter from the court stating that another case had been filed against me. This time, it was not just about property or jewelry, it was about my very character. She accused me of fraud. She claimed that I had forged my parents' signatures years ago to grab the house. She even attached fake documents with my handwriting. Copied. My heart sank when I read the charges. It was not only insulting, but also terrifying. If proven guilty, I could even face prison. For a moment, despair filled me. I sat alone in my room, trembling, wondering how far she would go. How could she be my own sister and still try to destroy my entire life? I closed my eyes and remembered my father's words. He always told me that truth shines brightest in the darkest hours. I decided that no matter what, I will not bow down. I contacted a lawyer in the city, someone more experienced than the local officials. I showed him everything. He studied the papers and smiled. He said, "Do not worry, these are poor forgeries. Anyone with knowledge can prove them fake." He prepared a strong defense and gathered handwriting experts to testify. Meanwhile, I prayed day and night, asking for strength. The day of the hearing came. The courtroom was crowded. My sister stood there confident with a sly smile. She believed she had finally trapped me. The judge listened to both sides carefully. My lawyer presented the expert report, which clearly showed the documents were forged beyond doubt. The handwriting was not mine. The judge looked directly at my sister and asked her if she realized the seriousness of filing false evidence. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. She stammered and gave excuses, but it was too late. The judgment was declared in my favor, not only dismissing her case, but also warning her that further false claims could lead to punishment. The court ordered her to pay a fine for wasting legal time. The crowd murmured and whispered. Many who once believed her lies now saw the truth with their own eyes. My sister left the courtroom with her head bowed. Her pride was shattered. That night I sat with Emily, and for the first time in years I felt true relief. We looked around our home, which had survived storms of fire, rumors, and endless disputes. Emily hugged me and said, "Mom, you did it. You never gave up, and you proved that truth always wins." Tears filled my eyes because I realized that more than land or money, the real victory was showing my daughter the power of resilience. In the following weeks, something unexpected happened. My sister isolated herself. She stopped coming out. She stopped fighting. It was as if the battle she had fueled for so long had consumed her completely. Relatives who once supported her turned away. She had lost credibility and respect. Greed had stolen everything from her, including peace. I decided not to hold hatred in my heart anymore. Carrying bitterness would only chain me to her actions. I chose to forgive her in silence, not for her sake, but for my own peace. I taught Emily that forgiveness does not mean forgetting, but it means freeing yourself from the prison of anger. We started focusing on building our lives again. Our business grew even stronger. Customers trusted us more because they saw our honesty and perseverance. Months later, I heard that my sister had left the village completely. She sold whatever little she had and moved far away, perhaps chasing another illusion of wealth, perhaps running from her own guilt. I did not know, and I no longer cared for me. The chapter was closed. Our home became a place of warmth again. We planted new trees in the fields as a symbol of fresh beginnings. I would often sit under their shade with Emily and talk about the future. I told her that no inheritance, no land, no money is worth losing family or dignity. She nodded with wisdom beyond her years. Looking back, I realized that my sister's greed had tested me in every way. It tried to break my body, my spirit, my reputation, but in the end it became the very reason I discovered my own strength. It pushed me to fight harder, to protect my daughter, to build something of my own, and that strength will stay with us forever. This story is not just about property or greed. It is about resilience. It is about choosing peace over revenge. It is about teaching the next generation that even when betrayal comes from the closest blood, truth and patience can carve a path forward. And those scars remain. They remind us of battles survived and victories earned. So I close this chapter not with anger, but with hope. I hope that wherever my sister is, she finds clarity. I hope she learns that greed only brings destruction. And I hope my daughter carries the lesson that no matter how fierce the storm, the human spirit can endure and rise again, stronger, brighter, and free.